hopefully that will not be an issue this time. And I have a backup plan just in case. All right, well, today we're going to discuss billing, and in Workamajig, there's 3 types of billing. There's time and materials, fixed fee, and retainer-based billing. So we'll cover all 3 of those. But before we dive into the actual billing, we're going to cover the back-end setup in the system setup for billing options. And then we'll move over and I'll show you some billing setup that you can do at the client level. So let's start at the back end of the system, main menu, admin manager, system setup, and you've got billing options. So these are the billing options that I'm going to cover, and the billing items is the first one in the list. And all of these lists, you can go down to the bottom left-hand corner and insert a new row if you wanted to add a new billing item. But you can see billing items are also linked to a sales account. So you could invoice your clients by billing item if you chose to. So something like production or professional services. But this also allows you to set up your invoices so that they would display say the project, and then the billing item, maybe professional services, and then below professional services would be things like account management, graphic design, copywriting, editing, those types of services. I'll be showing you those services in just a moment as well. But do note that you do have a sales account linked to your billing items. Billing groups. This is a tool that allows you to link projects together from different clients so that you could see their invoices by billing group. And the sample that I typically use is a golf tournament. So if your company is hosting a golf tournament this summer and each wanted to try to get 18 of your clients to each sponsor a hole, you might put in a billing group code called 2022 golf tournament. And then at the project level, there's a field for that billing group code. And then when you're running your reports, you can search based on billing group code and bring those all up together. That's billing groups. Sales tax rates. This is where you're going to set up any sales tax. Your services and items may also have tax applied as well. So some of your clients may or may not have tax rates set up, but this is where you'll set that up. And again, you can insert a row. There's a couple sample ones. These are pretty old, so I'm not sure their tax rates are accurate today. Payment terms, due upon receipt, net 15, 30, and 45. Back when I started in 2013, right after the Great Recession, people were adding net 60 and net 90 because it was hard to collect on your accounts receivable at that time. That is an option as well. Payment methods, ACH and check. Write-off reasons. Now, this is a write-off reason at the project level, not like you're writing off a bad debt invoice that's never going to get paid. This is you're deciding whether or not to bill a certain service or item at the project level, and this gives you an option to give a reason why you're going to write that off. So beyond scope, customer service, and internal mistake are in there by default. And again, you can insert a write-off reason using that button as well. You do have invoice templates in the system. There's the detailed is in there on install. It will have more boxes checked than the summary. So summary is going to show less on the invoice than the detailed layout. And your services. These are the services that you will be billing based on an hourly rate. And like this one here for account management, you can see that it's linked to a billing item, production, and a sales account. So this is, the idea of where you might show on your invoice project, and then the billing item of production, and then the account management as the sub item that would display as well. Service rate sheets. If you have a client that you might not be wanting to bill off the standard rates, you can create 150 an hour or 200 an hour, rush rates, nonprofits, and this allows you to create a specific rate sheet to use on certain projects instead of the default service rates from here. And if you're, let's say you're doing the nonprofit one, you could come in here and go to the More button and then apply an adjustment and change this to 90% and apply that adjustment, and it would change decrease these each by 10%, and then you could pull the rates from this rate sheet instead of the default services on your project. All right, so that's the back end setup. Now I'm going to navigate over to a client record. Go back to my Creatives Today page. Well, and here's some projects that I put in the system for today. And going to the project, I can jump to a client record using this link here. And so this is me now inside that client record that I navigated to from within the project settings. And this gives me billing defaults for this particular client. And as you can see, if I have this edit pencil over here under the defaults, I can have my sales taxes apply here. I also have a unique AR account. If I wanted to have a separate account for this particular client, I could create my own extra AR account in the chart of accounts. And so that would display here as well, but it's going to use the default. I believe it's the 1200 account for AR. You also can set up an invoice template for this particular client if you knew one of these was the type of format that that client needed. You could use that as your default invoice template for this client. So anytime you create an invoice for that client, it will look at this client record and choose that as your default. Billing method always defaults to time and materials. And if you're wanting to change this, and this client never does time and materials, then I would suggest switching it to fixed fee. That way, when you create a new project for this client, it will default to fixed fee and you won't have to manually change it from time and materials each time you create a new project for that client. This is where you're controlling how are those invoices going to display to my client when I generate them. One invoice per client or one invoice per project. So that means if you had 10 projects, you'd create 10 invoices if you switch to project, or I can leave it on client. And then how do I want my lines to appear? This is one line per project, one line per project and task, one line per service or service item. And then I chose project, then billing item and item. That was kind of the example I gave when I was talking about billing items. So this client invoice would show, if it had 10 projects, project 1, and then billing item of, say, professional services, and then the account management, graphic design items would present on that as well. And you can set up your default terms for this client as well down here. That is the backend setup and the billing defaults on the client record that you can set up. Now we're to the point where it failed the last 2 times that I tried to present this to you on a webinar. So I'm going to discuss the 3 types of billing methods. And so these are the projects that I have transactions on that I can bill. So if I go to the billing day page, those transactions fall within this to bill as of today's date in the time and materials, fixed fee, and retainer buckets. So this is our mass billing tool. And this allows me to use this tool to generate multiple invoices at once, whether they're time and materials, fixed fee, or retainer, or media billing. So under retainer, that's typically the easiest one to bill. And in order for us to have a project that has the retainer billing method, I need to have a retainer in the system in order for that to actually work. And so when I look at my billing projects that we're talking about today, one of those is a retainer. There it is, this one over here on the right. So if I look at that project and go into project settings, the billing method is time and materials, because if I switch to retainer, that is now a required field. And if I didn't have that retainer in the system, I couldn't save this because I don't have a retainer, and I chose retainer billing method. So I'd have to go back to time and materials, create my retainer, and come back. And so this is where I can choose a retainer for that I'm going to link this project to. And so I'm going to create that retainer first. Going back to our billing today page. Plus button up here allows me to create a new retainer. Just as a reminder, on your toolbar, you have the plus button up here. If you don't want to navigate to today billing, you can scroll down to billing and create your retainer directly from the new button on the toolbar. So I am going to use the plus button here, create a new retainer. I have a GL company set up in my sandbox. Oh, shoot. I neglected to remember the name of that client. Test space co. Now I'm going to create that for test space co client. I'm giving the required fields. You might not have GL company as a required field, but I do. But you will have client and title as required fields, along with anything else that has this red dot. Those are all required fields. So as I'm setting up this retainer, I'm choosing the start date for the retainer. I will leave it as today's date, so it's easily billable today. But if I knew this wasn't going to really start until May 1st or June 1st, I could change the date, move that forward as well. How frequently are we going to bill this retainer? Defaults to monthly, but I could do quarterly, yearly, or weekly. I'll leave it on monthly. Number of periods, 1, 2 months, 6 months, I'll do 12 months. Amount per period, $5,000. Sales account, that is a required field, and it's pulling from our default sales account in the back end of the system. Who is going to be the person that approves these retainers? Choose myself. If I have a special retainer invoice template that I want to use, I might select that here as well. Notice that it's not a required field. Include labor, include expenses. These refer to invoice extras separately. So if I check these two boxes, you can't see it on this screen. Oh, and here is where I am getting my connection error. Say yes. All right, let's see if we can keep going, or I might have to switch over to my other database. So including labor and including expenses. When I hit save, there will be an option for me to exclude some labor and exclude some expenses. And so if I do on the next page exclude some labor and exclude some expenses, what do I want to do with those extras? Do I want to check this box and invoice those extras on a separate invoice, or not check that box and just print those extras on the same retainer invoice? And when it comes to those extras, what's the line format for that? Do you just want one total line for that? Or if you have more than one project linked to this retainer, do you want those extras displayed using one line per project? I'll just do one line myself. Cross our fingers that we get to save this. So far, so good. Right now, you can see there are no invoices or projects because we just created this retainer. And we do have our edit tool here. If I need to go back and change any of these choices that I made, I can do that at this time. But notice here is our included items and our included services and our included items. So this is what those extras are talking about. If I wanted to come down and remove senior copywriting, I can take that one off the list, and notice that changed from 49 to 48. Maybe I'm not going to have airfare included in that $5,000 a month if that's involved, so I can remove airfare, and that drops that down to 48. So now we know that our two extras are the senior copywriting service and the airfare purchase item or expense report item. So that is what I'm describing when I'm talking about including labor and including expenses. If I didn't get rid of any of those services or items and turn them into extras, then you're only going to be billing that $5,000 a month, regardless of whatever it is you have for services and or items. Now, keeping in mind that the contract for this current one is $5,000 a month for 12 months. And if this was, for PR or something like that, you might have certain months where you have 6 or 7 projects going, and you have, well over $5,000 in labor. So that would, put you in the black on this, on the status of this retainer. But maybe there'll be other months where you're not working on any projects or just one project, and you only incur, maybe $1,000 in labor, and then so you're ahead $4,000 for that month. Keeping in mind that, if you're continually losing money on that retainer every month, then you may want to renegotiate that contract when it comes expires, so that you're going to be more profitable on that retainer. So that's the setup for the retainer. And now that I have that retainer set up, I can go back to my Creatives Today page. Bring up my billable projects here. It's moving on me. And this will now allow me to change that time and materials to retainer, and then our April 22 retainer that we just created, this project will be linked to that retainer. I will hit save there. And now we can bill that retainer. I'm going to my math billing tool, clicked on retainer. Here's that April 22 retainer. Check that box. Generate. I can also save myself a step if I want to create it as approved. Won't do that. But now that retainer's been billed, the April one, so it's gone. And this, if I refresh my browser, should change this retainer amount down to 5,000 from the 10,000, because we just billed 5,000 of the other retainer. So that is retainer billing, and I'm going to bring up my client invoices. And I'll just choose an invoice date today, and there's our $5,000 invoice. And I can go ahead and approve that and post it. And I can see my posting details. $5,000 debit to accounts receivable and other revenue, $5,000 credit. Unposted it. So that is retainer billing. And if you want to see all the retainers in your system from the Global Search Views tool or from Today Billing, down here in the Views section at the bottom, I have the same retainers thing here. And I can look at all the retainers in my system. So here is that our retainer that we just created here, but here's some old ones from the past as well, but that is a way to see your retainers in the system. Okay, so that's retainer billing, and we still have time and materials and fixed fee to cover. So when we're talking about time, we'll do time and materials first. We can bill using the mass billing tool, but we also, I want to show you that you have the ability to bill directly from your project. So looking at my time and materials test project 1 here, opening that up, I'm looking at the billing tab here of that project. And you can see that I have 4 hours of labor and a purchase order out there that I can bill. And the default does default to unbilled here, but if I wanted to check to see if there are any unapproved transactions, that if they were approved, I could bill them. So I would be searching for unapproved transactions. And if I did find an unapproved transaction, then I would reach out to the account manager or project manager of that project and say, hey, you need to get those transactions approved in order for me to be able to bill them. I can see other billed items on this project if I should switch to billed, or see if anything has just been marked as billed. Has anything been written off? Has anything been put on hold? Has anything been transferred? Has anything been adjusted? So those are all their options that you can use. So here I'm just looking at our unbilled, and then if I want to bill this labor, I just check that box, and then I can bill it. I can just choose to mark it as billed, which the system will treat it as if it was billed, but you're not actually billing the client. Or I can write that labor off, and if I write that labor off, this is where those write-off reasons that I was mentioning, that you can use that there as well. If I drill into the details here, I can see I can split this time entry up. So if I click on split the time entry, I could actually put in two hours here, must be less than 4 hours because that's the total number of hours here. But I could split this into 2 hours, and then I could write off 2 of those hours and then bill 2 of those hours if I chose to. Or if I want to transfer this to another project, I can pick the other project and task, or if it's this project itself, I would just pick this project and then move it to another task. So you do have the ability to shuffle labor transactions from one task within a project to another task using this transfer tool, or to actually, if it was a mistake made and you put this labor against this project, but it was really meant for another project, then you can transfer those labor hours to the other project using that tool as well. So I'm going to go ahead and bill both the order. Notice as soon as I check the order that this red highlight comes up. 1 or more orders are selected. Orders may not be marked as billed or written off. And that's just letting you know that because I have an order on here, I wouldn't be able to switch that and write them off or mark them as billed. I could put them on hold, but I'm going to go ahead and bill them. So one per billing item and item, last ditch effort, adjust total amount to bill. If I wanted to bill 500 or 600, I could manually change that to 500 or 600 and create the invoice, and it would adjust that, but it wouldn't affect your transactions in here. I'm just going to leave the full amount in there, 1 per billing item and item, and create that invoice. So here is the invoice that we just created for account management and printing. And you can see the total amount open is $632.07. I'm going to go ahead and approve it, and I'm going to post it, and then I'm going to do something else and then come back and show you something that we can do with this particular invoice. So now I have my posting details. You can see that it's hitting the accounts receivable, and then each of the lines are hitting what we expected, and then sales tax as well. And I'm going to unpost it. So right here, I do have in red, it says you have $36,636.29 in unapplied advance bills. So what that means is that at one point in time for this client, I created an advance bill invoice to collect a deposit for them, and I could use that deposit invoice to apply against this open amount here. And if I click on that, probably have several to choose from. But these each of these are an advance bill, and I'm going to create one more just so you can see the process of creating the advance bill invoice versus just using one that's existing for that client. So back on the Today Billing page, I can create an invoice. It could be linked to a specific project. I'm just going to link mine to that same test Waste Co. and make this 33,000. That box right next to it says this is an advanced billing. This means I am going to send this ahead of the work that gets done. So I'm collecting $33,000 ahead of the time. And then as I recognize that revenue when the work gets done, like I just did with that invoice that we billed that labor in that purchase order, I will be able to apply this to that. So if you want to invoice comment, you can add your comment here. I'm going to go ahead and save that, approve it, and post it. And now when I look at the posting details for this advance bill, it's going to look a little bit different. Accounts receivable, 33,000 looks normal, but this is your advance bill accrual account. So this is, again, for $33,000 you're collecting from your client before any work gets done. So this becomes a temporary liability on your balance sheet. And so you would see this 33,000 as a liability today, and then that will get reduced as we recognize that revenue. So when I bring up that invoice, I'll use my shortcut here. The same one where it says less applied advanced billings. I now have 69,000 because I just added that $33,000 one. And that is the bottom one here. So I'm going to apply that advance. Now when I look at this invoice again, there's no open amount because there was $632.07 was covered by that $33,000 advance bill that we just created. Now this, you may or may not want to send this to your client. If you want to send it to show them that you're using up that deposit that they sent in earlier, that's, you're more than welcome to do that. But as soon as I post that invoice now that it's linked to that advance bill accrual is getting debited for that $632.07. So that will reduce your temporary liability by that amount on your balance sheet. So that is creating a invoice at the project level for a time and materials project. And now I'm going to show you the same type of workflow, but using the mass billing tool. So if I open up my, and again, this says today to bill as of today's date. If I was billing and closing out March, then I would just backdate this March 31st, and then I would be billing everything that was to bill as of that date. But I'm going to go ahead and use today's date. Hurry that up a little bit with a refresh of the browser. So calculating the time and materials. There we go. So this is all of the time and materials billing that's available to me, but we're just talking about our Tesco company. And we're looking for our March billing, time and materials test project 2 down here. This is the bottom one. So if I just, the simplest way here would just, if I wanted to bill all these and I knew I didn't need to check anything out, I would just check that box there, and then I could come up and generate all those invoices at the same time. I'm just specifically looking at this one here, and I could do the same thing and just generate that single invoice for this. But I still have the opportunity to open that up, and then I basically get back to that same tool that I had at the project level, where I could come in here and I could split the time up and write part of it off, bill the order or not bill the order. So you still have some control over generating that invoice for this particular project, but that allows you to use the mass billing tool to mass bill all of these projects if you chose to, or again, get into the specifics of each individual project if you need to actually drill into them and then make those adjustments and then bill them. But if I just check that box, click the generate, invoice date, I'll create this one as approved, one invoice per client, billing item and item, generate invoices. So that 22 project is now gone because we just billed it. And if I want to go back and review client invoices for this client, here's a list of all the invoices that we've created, and you can see there are there's one advance bill invoice, advance bill, no, no, yes, no. And let's see, 5,007. This one here, we'll open that up. This one again is 621.85, and we have that same less applied advance billing, so I can use that same advance bill that I just created today and cover this using their deposit. Post that invoice. You'll see that advance bill accrual temporary liability is going to be reduced by another $621. That is retainer billing and time and materials billing. And now we'll talk about fixed fee billing. So if I navigate back to list of projects, here's the fixed fee project 1. So I'm going to click on that. I'm going to show you an option in here that's available. So under billing options for fixed fee, there is a checkbox here, expenses are not included. And so you can either check this box or not check this box. If this box is checked, then you can bill for those expenses extra. If this box is included, then those expenses are just going to be bundled in with the overall budget of the project, so you'll still be billing a percentage of that project's budget. And when I go down to the billing tab on a fixed fee project, it looks a little bit different. Defaults to fixed fee up here. If I wanted to bill the actuals, I could click on the bill actuals and treat it like it was time and materials. But since we're on fixed fee, I'm going to switch this from percentage of billing item to one amount. So if I wanted to bill everything and set 100% here, then it's $59.74. If I wanted to bill just $5,900 at this time, then it's 98%. Or if I just want to bill 50%, then it's going to bill half of the budget. So there is another option in here that gives you a little more control. Third, percentage of service and item. So this is now breaking apart the labor that we've done on this fixed fee project from the printing expense down here, this printing item. So this allows me to say, I'm going to bill 50% of account management, general admin, but 100% of art and creative design, 100% of brand consulting, and 100% of graphic design. And then I could bill with whichever percentage I want, but I could bill 100% of the printing as well. So now my total to bill is $51.93 based on me selecting only to bill 50% of account management and general admin labor, but then billing 100% of everything else that's left. So I can create this invoice as well, a revenue invoice. I could choose to create an advance bill again if I chose to, but just going to be another revenue recognition invoice. I will approve it, post it right now, and you'll see that it's hitting that accounts receivable, and then all the lines are getting credited. I unpost it, and we still have any less applied advanced billings. We still have 68,000 in there, so I can still use up a big chunk of that deposit, apply that advanced bill, and then post it again. You'll see that it switches to advanced bill accrual getting reduced by a little over 5K. That is going to the project and using the billing tool on a fixed fee project. And then we have the same type of setup for mass billing for fixed fee like we did for time and materials. So I'm going to, again, pick my specific client in here. And then my 2022 projects are down here. So this is where I have my two fixed fee projects. Again, if I just wanted to bill those two, I could come up here and generate those invoices, or I can click inside of them, inside of this particular project, and it's defaulting here to remaining, but I still have, it could be from what's remaining to bill or what's the total to bill, and then I have my percentage that I can bill here, or I can use that edit details, and this will look familiar again. So this is again where I can change to one amount, bill the same way that I did on the project billing, but I also still have that percentage of service and item here as well. And this time we'll just kind of do the reverse. 100% of both of those, and then only 50% of the other three. But we'll still bill 100% of our printing. Generate my invoice. Approve it. And before I post it this time, I'll just go ahead, since I still have a deposit left over. We'll use up some more of that liability. And so our advance bill is about $8,000 or $9,000 used up. And again, no open amount because we're using that applied billing. If I want to print any of these invoices, I can click on the edit details here and then choose my invoice template to use. save that, and then print. This is where you'll see that it's a $0 invoice. Amount due is 0, but you can see the details on your printed invoice. And then on your invoice template itself, show you the back end of that. Go into that detail. If I choose my layout, this is where I can add my logo to the top left-hand corner just by navigating to my hard drive or network drive to get that logo added to my template. So when I'm printing those out, they will have the logo in the top left-hand corner, your logo. I want to cover a little bit of extra stuff that you can do using our billing tools and reporting. You do have several views: client list, client invoices, retainers, receipts, etc. All of these are available here. So if I wanted to look at my client list, I have access to my client list. Or if I want to look at my client invoices, I have access to the views for the different reports for client invoices. Just as a reminder, you always have access to those under the main toolbar. Scroll down to billing, you have those same views there as well. We won't go into billing worksheets today, but billing worksheets are an option. They'll probably be in the advanced billing webinar. And this would allow you a billing manager to generate worksheets that automatically get sent to the account manager or project manager on a project. And then those account managers are the ones who decide if something needs to be put on hold, if something needs to be split in a couple hours, be written off. Then the account manager takes care of that and then approves their changes. And then those come back to the billing manager, and they would be ready to create invoices, but you don't have to rely on the account manager. You can override whatever it is they suggested billing as the billing manager. The last thing I want to show you is under the Everyone app, and that's in our report center. There's 3 reports I want to show you. So you have your 2 reports, your AR standard AR reports. You have your AR aging report in here. You also have a client statements report that you can send to your clients. And then also, if you're wanting to look across your clients and projects at the project level with respect to budgeting and billing actual hours and allocation of hours, you have your project budget analysis tool that's very powerful, that allows you to run a report based on a specific client or a specific project for a client. So I'm just going to use our Vesco client here and run that report. So this is all of my projects for that particular client over the last 9 years that I've been in here. But you can see that there's a lot of columns that are showing across the top with amounts billed, inside costs, outside costs. And if you hover over those columns, it gives you a little description: current budget expense gross, total gross expenses from all approved estimates. You also have a modify button on this canned report, which is not that common. But when you do modify this, you don't get any additional filters as an option. You're only able to use the filters that are on that front screen here. That's unlike a custom report, which you can use your own custom filters. So those 3 reports, again, one is under project financial reports, and that is the project budget analysis tool. And then under your AR reports, you have your AR aging and your client statement that you can generate those reports and share them with your clients as well. So when I get back to my billing, and I want to actually send these out to my clients, I can bring up my whole list of client invoices. I could check that top one there, and then I could print all those invoices or email all those invoices. Or if I print them out, I can use the email tool in the PDF as well to email them. But this here would allow me to capture that these have been printed or these have been emailed, and they would go to the primary contact's email or the billing email address for that particular client. That is the Billing Basics webinar. I'm glad we got through it without me having to switch to our other database. Hope you enjoyed it. And if you have any questions, feel free to shoot an email to support@workamajig.com, and your account manager will be there to help you. Have a great day, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.